Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Verified Gains. Hope everyone had a good week. Well, actually, hope everyone survived this past week, especially Friday. And we're going to cover what happened on today's episode. So please stay tuned. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe. Okay, so let's dive right in. So, what happened? I mean, yesterday was an absolute bloodbath, right? So, last video, which was October 6th for me, we're doing really well, right? We're doing really well. We had some warning signs, right? And on the last video, I said, hey, be careful with this particular candle right here because there is a chance that we might retest it. And that was around $121,000. And we did. So, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I said, okay, well, this was sort of expected, and we're consolidating at 121,000 quite nicely. Maybe that's all we needed. Now, in the past, I've also talked about this particular candle, if you guys remember from that video, right? So I said, on that video, I said, okay, let's not worry about this doji pattern because the market doesn't always retest the doji pattern. However, this one, where we actually formed the real body, a substantial one, with a long wick to the downside, there's a high likelihood. Well, this is what I said. I said, if we were to avoid the retest of this, we need to run away. Okay, we need to run away from this red candle. Now, I thought that's what happened, but I was quite surprised, right? Because yesterday we had this huge drawdown. Now, for the Bitcoin, it was minus 7%. For the altcoins, absolute bloodbath. And we're going to cover that in just a little bit. Now, so what did this prove? Well, eventually the market does want to, in fact, retest these wicks to the bottom. And that was around $112,000. So that's what ended up happening. Okay. Now, forget about this candle right here. When we just look at yesterday's candle, actually, we held very well. And the reason I say that is because the traditional equities market also had a huge drawdown. And if you guys have not read the news yet, it was mainly supposedly because of the trade war between US and China. That is ongoing and has been ongoing. And I'm going to say the same thing that I said back in April. Okay. I'm not necessarily saying it's BS. Okay. I'm not necessarily saying that. However, you really do have to think about the big picture. Now, the US president, he is a businessman. Okay. He's a businessman as well as the president of the United States. And at the end of the day, what he's going to want is negotiation, not some sort of trade war where nothing happens. I talked about this time and time and again. Please go watch my video back in early April if you want to learn more about the trade wars and the reality of it. Guys, this is just a facade, okay? It's because the US wants a better position in international trades. That doesn't mean that the whole world economy is going to go down the drain, okay? So let's just take a moment. Everybody relax, okay? Do not have a knee-jerk reaction. And guess what? Some of the retail investors or big institutions probably had a knee-jerk reaction to this and probably sold. I don't think that's actually the major driver here. I think this major drawdown, and we'll see in a little bit with the altcoins, is primarily, I believe, because of perpetual futures trading, or we call it perp traders. Okay, we're talking about guys who leverage 10x, 20x, 100x, okay, and do perp trading. And guess what? If the market has a drawdown like this, which was probably initially triggered by whales and a substantial portion of the retail traders hitting the sell button, Well, at the end of the day, that is also going to trigger margin call for a lot of those perp traders. And I looked at the liquidation heat map yesterday and absolutely wiped out. Like, we're talking about like I think I was on crypto Twitter. We're talking about 19 billion US dollars that has been liquidated. Okay, so that's the reality of perp trading. And I told you guys time and time again, that's what I used to do back in 2020, 2021, got burned big time, okay, on the traditional equities market. Believe me, been there, done that. And that's not what I recommend anymore, okay? If you're going to invest, spot trading, long term, maybe long term swing trading, but that's about it. If you're doing perp, okay, you better have a good setup and some background in finance or trading, because if not, you're going to get burned. Okay, I guarantee you're going to get burned. All right, so that was a major driver for this large drawdown. Let's focus more on the technicals. Okay, so do I think that we're going to retest the doji over here, which is below the, and by the way, this is now a resistance line, right? Okay. Do I think that we're going to retest the doji around $109,000 below the support line? Less likely. Okay. But at the same time, do I like today's red candle? And the quick answer is no. Okay. Although we've already filled this, now this is no longer a problem. This is a problem, however. So the best case scenario is actually by tonight, okay, before the new candle forms on TradingView, that we actually close as possible to $110,000, okay? Meaning we're retesting the support line. And the reason is if we close like this, okay, we form another red candle with a large wick to the downside. And that means over the weekend, we're going to continue to draw down until we form a real body down to the wick. Okay, so around $110,000. However, if by tonight we end up closing near here, then as soon as tomorrow or tonight, we can start forming a new candle back to the upside. And the earlier we do, the better, because we're already about halfway through October, or quote unquote October, and things are not looking too good so far. Okay, so the best case scenario is we retest, okay, and that would be a great entry for those of you interested in Bitcoin, right? $110,000. And after that, we start to resume back up, retesting $117,000, okay? So that is my outlook for Bitcoin. Let's take a look at Ethereum. Okay, so Ethereum broke down below $4,000. Okay. And right now, very similar pattern. So we'll see. Right now, layer one's not the problem. Okay, we need the Bitcoin to recover first before we worry about the rest of the markets. Let's take a look at Solana. Solana, I was very happy with the fact that the $180 support line was able to hold. However, boom, this becomes a resistance line, which sucks. And this becomes a resistance line, which sucks. Yeah, it was a bloodbath. I mean, look at this. Negative 14%. Now, guess what though? I love it. I love it. If you do not like volatility, get out. Okay, unsubscribe. Please just go, buy whatever blue chip stocks on the traditional equities market. This is the type of volatility that we exactly need in the crypto space right now. Ever since the large institutions have been getting involved in cryptocurrency, people are saying, okay, things are stabilizing. There's no more volatility. Well, guess what? Friday just proved that wrong. We still have volatility in the markets. There's great opportunity. If you have a volatility to the downside, there's an equal likelihood that there will be volatility to the upside. And that's exactly what we're going to need to close out this bull cycle. Okay. All right. Let's look at PopCat. So PopCat, yesterday, look, I looked at my portfolio, absolutely crushed. At one point, PopCat was down 50%, I believe. But guess what? I'm not using leverage. I'm not perp trading. So to me, it was, if anything, a great buying opportunity. So I didn't quite get to buy. I mean, I heard some people were able to buy at the 8 cent mark. I mean, I'm not sure if that was possible on Coinbase, but the lowest I was able to buy was around like 13 cents. Excuse me. So I bought more PopCat around 13 cents, a little more around like 22 cents initially when I was drawing down. But in any case, right now it's around 15 cents. So I'm not terribly worried about it, but we'll have to see Bitcoin's recovery first before we even worry about this. So, in terms of PopCat, before I was saying, look, by this time, before, we reach November, the market will decide which way, and it was down, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and get rid of, yeah, honestly, these lines don't even matter anymore. We just have to see it go back up and back above 35 cents. Great. All right, Troll. Let's take a look at Troll. Um, by the way, I was very happy, and you're going to think I'm crazy, but I was actually very happy. Look, I mean, I'll show you an example. So, WIF, for example, I mean, look at this. And WIF is not the only altcoin who experienced this. The price nearly hit zero. $0, guys. I'm not kidding. $0. It went from 68 cents to nearly $0. And this happened to multiple altcoins. So basically, people's portfolios were down like 99%. Um, However, that was not the case for Troll. Troll held. I was very surprised. And perhaps that tells me maybe the amount of perp traders not that high in Troll. And that gives me confidence that perhaps there is, in fact, a community. In fact, people are actually putting real money, spot trading, TrollCoin. And to me, that's a very bullish sign. All we did was retest the previous low around 8 cents. Okay, so I ended up buying more Troll yesterday. I bought more Troll this morning. I see why not. You know, I mean, this is very similar to my initial entry price for Troll. So there's no reason. In fact, it's actually higher. So in fact, there's no reason for me not to accumulate more Troll. If you zoom out, and please zoom out, all we're doing is just consolidating. Yes, we had a little bit of pullback, but nothing detrimental. In any case, that's all I have for today. Let's keep an eye out on the political news, see what happens with the so-called trade wars. And, for me, this is a great buying opportunity. No knee-jerk reaction here. Do not be emotional with the markets. The markets don't have any emotions for you. If you guys have not subscribed yet, please do so, especially if you're into Solana, TrollCoin, or PopCat. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and please enjoy the weekend. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.